Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. I'm Beth. Today we are going to do a quarterly review for January through March. Let's go ahead and get started. Peering briefly back into the past, this is my goals, what I call my manifestations for 2024 and a little bit beyond. This column here, and it goes into the future. It's more than a year out of things that I am looking to do but are related. I had 2 per life category. My life categories are based off of the elements of the earth. So earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. If you want to know more about that, there is another video that I will link down in the description box below, introducing my core element system, which is something that I am still figuring out for myself, and that plays into this quarterly review. I've done some prep work. I looked back at my past quarterly review process, which lives in Notion. Actually haven't used it in a while. I have not done a quarterly ritual in a hot minute. It doesn't resonate with me anymore now that I've moved into this elemental system that I've been developing for myself, and obviously the system resonates with some of you as well. I am working through the kinks of a quarterly review that will fit within that system. I have the framework of it. I think by the time we get to the end of the second quarter of the year, so after April, May, and June, I might actually be able to put together a workbook that goes along with it. The other thing that I would refer you to in reference to watching me do this quarterly review is that I have a video on developing your core values, which is how I went about selecting my own core values, because it's not just about picking a word. I have a mission statement for each core value. I have an action word for each core value. It's definitely gets it into my soul and my spirit so that I remember what those core values are in my day-to-day. So we are going to take these. I've done a little bit of prep work back here and given myself a tab by which to find what I'm looking for. And I have set up here a quarterly review spread. I do have 4 different areas that, again, I'm working through the naming of and that sort of thing. So stay tuned for the future. But these are the questions that I'm asking myself moving forward. I've gone ahead and put in some icons here when we get to the other portion of this. I've also given myself a few notes. I don't want this video to last forever. I will probably expand on my answers personally myself, either in my own journaling system or later on in the journal. The other thing I want to let you know is that I am doing this on like the 10th or 11th of April. I'm not quite sure what today is. And that's okay. You know, it's okay that I didn't get it in right on March 31st or March 30th. You get it in when you can get it in. Part of the reason it's taking me a little bit longer is because I got hung up on what questions did I want to ask myself? What is relevant to me now in the way that I plan and the way that I set my core values and the way that I set my manifestations or my goals? I'm working through that system, and it's a system that I'll eventually share with you. The first thing that I want to ask myself is, where am I right now? What is my reality? It's just one of those questions that I think everybody should ask themselves, because our circumstances change. I came into 2024 having a little bit of a difficult time. We'd all just rolled off of having COVID for the first time. And then it just became hit after hit after hit. And my optimism took a toll. It's been knocked down a few pegs. It's been a little bit difficult. And when I look at this and I see, where am I right now? What is my reality? My first reaction is, I'm tired. I am tired of putting out fires and dealing with things that have to be dealt with in our adulting world, right? My car has almost broken down twice. I've had to pay a lot of money on my car. My son had to have surgery. I had 2 kids living with me, adult kids. Now they're both gone all of a sudden, and the silence is almost deafening, although not necessarily unwelcome. I had a spine thing going on. I'm just tired. I am tired of all of those things that were just going wrong in January, February, and March. And yet, if I look back at my monthly reviews, so this is a monthly review, a reflection that I did for March, and these are the good moments, and these are the bad. And when you take the time to write them down, you might actually find out that you had more good moments than you did bad moments. But sometimes those bad moments take a bigger toll. They take a bigger toll emotionally. They take a bigger toll sometimes financially, and that's definitely been the case for me this year. So, what is my reality? Well, like I said, I'm tired. January, February, and March were difficult. Finances are tight, and work right now for me is pretty uninspiring. So that's where I am at. Those are very short answers and something I can really expand on out in long form journaling if I want to do that and work through some of those statements. Some of them are obvious, like finances are tight. They just are after the quarter that I've had. I'm tired. Well, how do I want to break that down? Work is uninspiring. That's also a pretty loaded statement that needs a little bit of breaking down either in my journal or with my therapist. That's how I'm feeling right now. This is my truth, right? One of the other questions I want to ask myself is, do I still connect with my core value statements? Again, I'll refer you to my core values video. Each one of my core values has a statement that goes with it. This is Earth. My core value for Earth is stability. That statement, just to give you an example, is stability allows me to feel comfortable and financially secure. Stability sets the tone for my future. Stability creates a path for my boys to follow. That is the purpose statement for my Earth life domain and the core value that goes with it. Do I still connect with my core value statements? If you have set up your own core value statements, go back and review them. I have 5 different core value statements. I've gone back and looked at those. I definitely still resonate with those statements. So I'm just going to put in yes, because I don't feel like I need to rewrite anything. I don't think I need to change anything. And I do like to look at my core values on a quarterly basis because core values can change. You can have circumstances in your life that uproot all of the things, and suddenly you find yourself questioning, and you need to go back and look at those core values and say, does one of these need to change? Can they change as quickly as in 3 months? Probably not. I do see that is a more gradual thing that you'll notice over 3, 4, 5, 6 quarters if you are entering into a different phase in life, but we always do want to check in with them. All right, did I honor my power word this quarter? And a power word is a word of the year, and mine is equipoise, which just means balance. Equipoise. Balance of forces or interests, balance or counterbalance of something as a verb. Did I honor my power word this quarter? Absolutely not. Was it all my fault? No. Did I honor my power word this quarter? We're just going to put absolutely not. Everything feels slightly off kilter. And then I added in there that some of my life areas have taken all of my energy, because it's really how it feels about certain things. And yet we definitely don't want to focus completely on the negative. Over here, I have what moments and momentums can I celebrate? So again, it's all about my energy, all about my powers, that momentum that is moving me forward. And not everything was bad. So while I did have a delay in getting moved from one apartment to another, I did finally get moved. That was one of the things that was in my manifestations for my home and hearth for the year, was to move into a larger apartment. It happened much faster than I anticipated. I just manifested it right at the beginning of the year. Then there were some delays that were frustrating, but now I am in the new apartment. So we can put that as one of our momentums, because moving into the new apartment gives me a larger workspace for my day job when I'm working from home. It gives me a larger workspace for Dots and Beyond to make my filming less chaotic. And it does separate my work-life balance in all of those areas. That's definitely a moment that we want to celebrate. And then some of those things can just actually be moments, right? So I had gotten the boys symphony tickets for us to go see a Bond and Beyond concert with the Arkansas Symphony Orchestra. We did that. We had a great time. I inadvertently had a Galentine's night. I hate that phrase. Friends and I had planned dinner and we didn't realize it was on Valentine's, and then we suddenly realized it was on Valentine's, so we kept it and we just had a great time on Valentine's. Something else that falls into the momentum more than the moments category is the fact that I removed social media from my phone. Can't talk and write at the same time. Remove socials from phone. That's a pretty big move to do that, and it has been about 2.5 weeks, maybe 3, and I really haven't missed it at all. I haven't missed having them on there at all. Another moment for me, I had a coworker give me the entire first season of the Buffy comics. There's like 2 in the series missing that I can just go out and buy myself, but that was exciting for me. I've always wanted to read them. Now there's a whole lot more than 1 season, and I might not end up now down a Buffy comic rabbit hole, but that was just something super exciting for me. And then I also pulled off a number of very important work events, and I'm just going to put that on here. High profile events for our organization. Everything went smoothly and I pulled everything off, and that's definitely in my air, which is career and creativity. So that's something else that I definitely need to celebrate as a triumph for this first quarter. Because again, while things were difficult in my personal life, there were other things going on that definitely made the living in the midst of all of the, I say trauma, it's a little bit hard of a word, but in the midst of the difficult times, worth it, right? And we have to cling to those sometimes, especially if you're me and you live with bipolar disorder and you lean towards the melancholic side, because it's very easy for me to just toss up my hands, give up, and let myself fall into a woe is me depression. So we got to battle that out. Next question that I'm going to ask myself when we're moving into dealing with the goals and all of that sort of thing is that I want to do a brain dump, a purge, list down the voices of any new ideas that are pulling at my energy. I want to do this first before going over what I'm supposed to be focusing on as my manifestations, because it's possible in this period, again, as difficult as it was, I have to do some pivoting. There's some things that I have to change after the last quarter. Do I have any new ideas that are pulling on my energies, my powers that I need to maybe shift towards and look? And there really isn't. I need to come up with some better ways to engage my patrons, and I need to find ways to improve or change work. But none of that is concrete at this point. None of that is set in stone. I am going to put down I'm just going to write Patreon because I need to do more for my patrons. I'll be honest, I've been a little bit overwhelmed at those who signed up for my Patreon very quickly. I feel very blessed. I feel honored that they're along for the ride, especially since they joined at a really terrible time in my life. And then ways to improve or change work. And that's really short, right? That's not a lot. But it could be a full page if needed. If you have an over-inspiring quarter, that's something that you could just purge everything out so that you can weigh the new with the older. And some of those things may end up on a someday maybe list, and some of those things may bump some of the things that you already have going. What enhanced my energy this quarter? What gave me energy? What fed me through the good time or through the bad times? The move. I'll be honest, the move gave me a little bit more energy, and my empty nest has given me a little bit of revitalization. It's a whole different vibe in here when I come home at the end of each day. And then the other thing that I have realized definitely gives me energy is active events. If you're new here, I'm an event manager. That's what I do. At this point in my career, I'm on the planner side rather than the venue management side, which means I spend more time at my desk than I do at an active event. And what I have figured out is that the days that I have the most energy are the afternoon after an event, or the very next day where I'm still on the high of pulling off that successful event. And then my energy plummets. Being in the event all of the time is really where I draw most of my energy. I get it from people. I'm not going to elaborate on this. It would take like a whole paragraph for me to write that out. But I've had that realization, and it's a very important one for me because it could change the direction of where my career is currently. And then to balance that out, what deprived me of energy this quarter or actively took it away or just actively stripped me of my energy? What are those things? One of those would have been my spine situation, right? In this particular instance, I was in agony. I was in pain. I could barely move. I had to go to physical therapy twice a week. Thank goodness it worked because now I've avoided surgery, but physical therapy was also expensive. That then contributed to a more tight financial situation, which saps me of energy kind of like an endless cycle. So spine situation, and then I'm going to put /car because it also contributed to tighter finances, because I do worry about money because I live with bipolar disorder. And on more than one occasion, when my illness has gotten the best of me, my finances have been disrupted and I've had to recover. And then things will be okay. And then something will happen and it devastate my finances and I have to recover. This is a cycle living with bipolar disorder that many of us struggle with, and many of us are constantly in some sort of recovery phase when things are going well, because this tight financial situation is not a result of my bipolar disorder, but I don't like being in a tight financial situation in the event that I have a relapse or things don't go well. I like to have things where they need to be in the event that my disorder gets the best of me yet again. I did not spend as much time with my friends, and that definitely took its toll. At one point, partway through February, maybe early March, even one of my sons said to me, "Hey, Mom, I think you need to go out with so-and-so." He's like, "Get out of the house, Mom," because he knows I need those friendships to feed me, to keep me going, because I am an extrovert and I don't get it at work. Okay, so there we go. We've got that in. And then moving into this next quarter, now that we've talked about what enhanced my energy or what deprived me of my energy, we want to talk about how I'm going to protect or grow my energy this next quarter. What are those things that I can do to give me that energy back, right? Or to protect what I already have and not sap myself of it some more. One of those things is recognizing what I can control, which is hard for us all, I think. But I need to realize that sometimes there are some circumstances that I cannot control and that I just need to be okay with that. I tend to be a control freak. Most event managers are. And yeah, it's just one of those things I have to remind myself of. I need to get more movement, not just for my health, but for my mental health and my clarity. So I need to get more movement, and I need to connect more with nature and my spirit. It's one of those things that I've really been craving for a few weeks, and my spirit. So those are things that I can work into our plan moving forward. Now that I've looked at those things and I know what's depriving me of energy and I know what's giving me energy, it's time for me to reframe what my manifestations were for the year. My overarching home and hearth manifestation is to eventually buy a condo. That was way future. But by the end of this year, I wanted to be putting aside a certain amount of money towards that purchase, which is probably going to have to go on hold. So I broke down the half-year goals that I had, organizing and settling into my new living space, which is what I'm currently working on, and then transforming my home into a green and a magical space. I'm a terrible plant mom. I want to be a better plant mom. The way that I keep plants is that they're all named philodendrons. I have one aloe in the kitchen that I have kept alive. The rest of my plants are all philodendrons because they're very difficult to kill or fake. I do have some fake plants thrown in here too. Air is career and creativity, and one of the things I wanted to do was pay rent creatively, and I'm considering a career pivot. Fire is relationships. I had in here to be available for a relationship and to strengthen friendships. Water is health and wellness. So I've been working on a dental plan for like a year and a half of some restoration that I needed done. Complete dental plan. Reach healthy weight with grace and positivity was another one of my overarching goals. With my spirit, return home to Kenya is one of those things that I wanted to do. Obviously, that is a big trip. That is a very expensive trip. And then developing and expanding my Elemental Life operating system is another one of those goals. Those are what we are looking at. These are the shortened versions of what was back here on my goal pages. Back here on this. This is just shortened down for us to look at it. I did print myself some new stickers, and we're going to do part of this here. The next question I want to ask myself in the reframing phase of this is, what is or are my most important manifestations right now and will have the greatest impact on my life out of all of these? What are the most important? What will have the greatest impact? I've got to get organized and settled into this living space. I'm probably 80% the way there at this point, I think. I have one closet full of stuff I really just have to sort through, and I still need to get some art on the walls, although I am making headway in that area as well, and that's just for my mental health, so I don't feel like I'm living in a moving zone. Transforming my home into a green magical space, well, it's a thing that's gonna take some money, right? Pay rent creatively or career pivot. Right now, the most important of those two is this one right here. Be available for a relationship or strengthen my existing friendships. That is more important for me. Complete my dental plan and reach a healthy weight. Both of these are super important. Can I do both of them right now? Probably not. But they are definitely what I would consider most important manifestations and will have the greatest impact on my life. And then returning home to Kenya, developing and expanding my life operating system. For now, this one is the more important for me simply because it's my guiding light at the moment. Out of that, we picked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm obviously not going to focus on 6 in a single quarter. So the next question is, what manifestations are no longer relevant or can be moved to a someday maybe list? Transforming my home into a green and magical space. I'm not going to move that to a someday maybe list because I've been thinking about it, and I think there's very thrifty ways that I can do that. There's people constantly giving away plants. We're going to explore some things there. I'm not going to take it off of my goals for the year. Career pivot, unless something falls in my lap, this is one of those things that can just take a back seat for the moment. Being open for a relationship, this one's definitely going to take a back seat. I don't have time for dating right now. I don't need the stress of dating. I don't need any of that in my life at the moment. And then clearly returning home to Kenya is definitely one of those things that's going to need to go on the back burner. The other thing I'm temporarily going to have to put on the back burner, at least for this quarter, is completing my dental plan. And that's simply because of finances. I got to get my finances back in order because most of what I'm having done is not covered under insurance. It's considered cosmetic or reconstruction. They cover like 50% of it, and I got to cough up the other 50% of it. And if you've ever had a root canal or a crown, they are not cheap. What's important, and I'd like to get back to it by the time we get to the next quarter, but for now, it's going to have to take a back seat. Let's just we'll go ahead and do that here too. And maybe at some point I can start growing some herbs or find some free plants, or I don't know. We'll see what we can do there. But definitely getting settled where I'm at is the more important of those. So if what is most important are organizing and getting settled into a new living space, paying rent creatively, strengthening my friendships, reaching a healthy weight with grace and positivity, and developing and expanding ELOS. If those are the most important things, the next question I have to ask myself is, are my daily powers and energies connected to what is most important right now? Am I putting my energy towards those things? Instead of calling them to-dos or the small goals towards a bigger goal, I have my bigger goal, which are my manifestations. The goals that I need to meet collectively to get to that manifestation, I call my powers, kind of like leveling up. And then the breakdown of all of the little things, and we'll talk about those more in a minute, that get to the power, which then get to the manifestation, are my energies. Those are the day-to-day things you do to then grow that power and then get to that manifestation. So are my daily powers and energies connected to what is most important right now? And the answer to that is no. I don't think I need to write that in here right now. I actually forgot to give myself a place for it, which is fine. It's okay. Too much energy right now is going into my day job, and it's not due to the volume of work, but it's due to the stress of executing that work, to the lack of connection with coworkers. It's not the most conducive work environment for me. I work better having other people around me. The lack of direction from leadership in what I'm supposed to be reaching. And it's not my immediate supervisor or even the person above them. We're talking about organizational leadership because of some of the things that are tasked in my wheelhouse. Definitely need some of that guidance from there, and I'm just not getting it, and it makes things a little bit difficult. Personally, I'm also worrying too much about money right now. I do think things will be okay, but I have spent so much of my history living paycheck to paycheck and not being prepared for emergencies that when things are not where I want them to be, I just go into stress mode about money. It's just one of those things. I constantly worry about it, even if I shouldn't be. Or maybe I should be mildly concerned, but I find myself in full-blown stress. So again, another conversation that I need to have with my therapist on how to transition out of that mindset. So much of my daily power and energy is wrapped up in that right now, even if it shouldn't be. The other question that I forgot to put in here, and we're just going to talk it out, is something impeding that connection? So if my daily powers and energies, I'm not feeling connected to what's most important right now, then what's getting in the way? This can be a person, it can be a behavior, it can be a perspective, it can be anything that is blocking that connection to your daily powers and energies. We've talked about the money. That's clearly a thing. I've had a huge sense of overwhelm for the most of the last 3 months. And again, that's just stress on the body makes us do crazy things. Part of that, when I get overwhelmed and stressed, I shut down. And that's when I do things like binge television instead of being productive. Just general productivity in my home and whatnot. I just tend to shut down. And so that's been part of our struggle, or my struggle, for the last 3 months. I've not had a therapist, so one of the things that I have to do is find a new therapist. There's multiple things impeding that connection, including watching too much TV. And on that note, we take all of these things and we evolve them to the next step, right? And the first step in that, one of the things I've always liked to discuss during a reflection period, is what is something I want to stop, start, and continue doing in the next quarter. I want to stop watching so much TV. I've watched a lot of Stargate. I think everybody knows I'm done with the Stargate binge. I have watched everything. It was an escapism into science fiction so that I could forget about my daily troubles. Was it beneficial? Maybe. Maybe for a little bit. For as long as it went on, probably not. What will I start? I will start getting more movement. I talk about it a lot, but we really got to put it into practice. And what will I continue? I will continue building my Dots and Beyond community, a community that I never expected to see. Like I said, it's taken me by surprise. It's one thing to know that people are watching your videos. It's a whole different ballgame when you find out they actually want to connect with you as a person. And now it's time to take these things while we are evolving them and move them onto my quarterly planning. I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to put these. I started putting something else here, and then I realized this wasn't enough space. And then I'd already divided this page in half like months ago, and I wasn't sure what I really wanted to do with it. Here's my trackers for April. What we're going to do here is figure out what goals I'm going to focus on, what manifestations, and then the powers and the energies that I need to focus on them. So the question is, what elemental domains require my energy this quarter? And what's absolutely necessary is health and wellness. Another place it's required is career and creativity. If I'm going to pay rent creatively, there's a whole lot more that I need to put into this effort. I've always said I didn't want Dots and Beyond to be a full-time business, but I don't mind making community more of a full-time business. What else do I require? Strengthening my friendships. Those are definitely the 3 biggest ones that I want to focus on right now. Okay. I also thought about just doing this on a piece of paper because I knew it was going to get messy. So you're all just going to roll with the messy. Just go with the flow. All right. So for now, we are going to skip these 2 and we are going to focus on these 3. The next question I had to ask myself was, what manifestations will I pursue? So we went from asking which elemental domains require my energy to picking the manifestations within those domains that I was going to pursue, and that's what these 3 will be. Now, we have to decide, what powers do I need for these, and what energies do I need for these? So what powers will help me reach these manifestations? In reaching a healthy weight, we are going to say for the quarter, lose 10 pounds. That's doable. I need to lower my A1C. I am definitively doing that with changes to diet, which will come up here. I need to reduce my stress somehow. Those are the 3 things that we are going to focus on, leaning towards reaching a healthy weight at some point in the future. For strengthening friendships, we are going to look at weekly friend dates, which could go into energies, but There's something else I've got to consider there, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. And introduce groups. Like most people, I have different friend groups. Then you begin to realize that if you're friends with both of these people, and there are things that you like about them, that there's probably things they like about one another, and that it is okay to introduce your friend groups to one another. And so there's a pocket of 3 different friend groups that I spend more time with, and it would be easier if we were spending time together. So maybe introducing my friend groups. All right, so that's that. Weekly dates and introducing friend groups. Paying rent creatively. I need to expand my Patreon and actually get on Discord. If you're not a creator and you don't know anything about Patreon, Patreon has now added community tabs that do a lot of the things that Discord does. And I don't want to maintain both. And that's going to be a little tricky in figuring out who wants what as far as that connection. I'm also looking at doing my first hangout with my elemental patrons. I've got a poll up. If you're one of my elemental patrons and you haven't answered that poll, there's a poll up on my Patreon about the best way to do that, whether you prefer Zoom, Google Meet, all of those things to choose from. So we are moving in that direction. Looking at content. I love doing the plan with me's, but I am leaning towards wanting to do more things like this, where you can see actual processes. Messy. It's not even beautiful, right? We're just going through my quarterly review and looking at what I want to focus on this year. Now that we have the powers, let's look at the energies. So where am I? I'm on air. I need to explore new features because I have not explored all these new Patreon features. And I need to get in there and look at them and see what they're actually all about. I would love to finally possibly break into forward-facing video. There was some of the other health and wellness stuff I wanted to accomplish before that, but here we are. And then research video types because I want to continue making content, but I want it to be relevant for both me and you. Moving into the friendship category and strengthening friendships. All right, here I'm talking about weekly dates, but I'm also talking about being stressed about money. So one of the things I want to explore is maybe have people over and host at home, and have everybody bring a little bit of something and hang out here, watch a movie, so that we're spending time together, but we're not necessarily spending money. And then I actually want to reconnect with some older friendships who just aren't as close. So it's not as easy, right? And see how I can incorporate those into my life. And maybe that means a weekly Zoom date like we did in the pandemic. Wine via Zoom or whatever. I don't know what that's going to look like, but that's definitely one of those things that I want to do. And this host at home breaks out into a smaller checklist in terms of keeping things neat and tidy, which I try to do anyway for my own mental health and my cat's mental health. My cats get crazy when things are messy. You can tell they're stressed out. They don't like it either. They've definitely calmed down now that most of the things are unpacked. On to reaching a healthy weight. This is a little easier to break out. So I want to do a weekly meal plan. HelloFresh does help me keep that a little bit simpler, but I think I'm going to pause HelloFresh for the rest of April and do some healthy things on my own to simply make April a little more cost effective for myself. 3 workouts per week. See, this is where you get down into the things that are measurable, and this is a little less measurable. These are definitely measurable, and you do want your energies to be something that you can measure. Where I work, we have free mindfulness sessions that you can log on to at lunch. I want to do 2 of those per week to help with my stress levels. Daily stretching. This is not just for general stretching. This is also to keep my spine in check so that I don't have that bulging disc again. So stretching, exercises for my back, that's all going to fall into that daily category. And then I need to go through the effort of finding a new therapist. I went through therapy for most of last year. Then my therapist took a leave of absence and then she didn't return. And I have not yet found a new therapist. So I need to do that. And that's just not a fun thing to go through that process once you finally find somebody that you trust. So there we go. Here's quarter 2. We're not quite 2 weeks into the month, but we're pretty darn close. Have I done these things? No. Do your quarterly review. It's okay if you do it a few days late. It took us a whole lot longer here because I'm talking to camera. If I had just sat down and brainstormed all of this, it would have gone a whole lot quicker. Some of this I had pre-prepped. I had looked back on my calendars to remind myself what was good and the bad. I had reviewed my March reflection. I didn't do a January one and I didn't do a February one, and I felt it. I definitely felt not having that moment to stop at the end of the month and reflect. So I did review my March reflection. I reviewed my calendars to remind myself of all of the things that happened. And then I've been working on what questions I really wanted to ask myself. So we'll check in at the end of the second quarter and look at this again and see if I liked this format and if it's something that I'm ready to incorporate into my Elemental Life operating system. Again, I will link both that introductory video to it as well as my core values, finding your core values video, because they are definitely related to doing this review, down in the comments below. If you like this video, if you want to see me do it again at the end of the second quarter, you know what to do. You got to go ahead and give me a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one.